Hi everyone, we live in an environment that even when it's nice and sunny like it is today outside, that there's this cloud of carb fusion. Many of us are confused regarding carbohydrate-rich foods. Are they good for us? Will they help us lose weight? And so on. In this video, I'm going to simplify all the confusion surrounding carbohydrates in a simple, short, straight to the point video. Let's get right into it. So to do this, I prepared a couple of charts. So on the first one here, we're going to have on one side whole unrefined, and on the other side, we're going to have refined. And very quickly, like magic, I'm just gonna pop these up right here. So as we can see, on one side, we have fruits and vegetables, including starchy vegetables such as grains, root vegetables like potatoes, yams, and including our squashes as well. And when I say whole unrefined, I mean straight from your produce section in your store, from your backyard garden. And maybe all you need to do is boil them or heat them up, but besides that, we're not doing anything else to them to make them more edible. And then I went ahead and added a couple examples here of refining these carbohydrate-rich foods. So for example, unrefined would be those oat groats, and then we would get steel-cut oats and then rolled oats. Likewise, we'll have brown rice and then we'll have white rice. And we can begin to refine these carbohydrate-rich foods down all the way into flour. So once we get into flour, we'll see our breads, we'll see our roti and chapati. I'm Indian, so of course I'm gonna put that there. We'll also see tortillas, noodles, pastas, and cereals. So these foods are made up of flour. And if we continue to refine things down, eventually we'll end up at like table sugar or syrups like agave, coconut, maple syrup. And then we'll also have HFCS. This is high fructose corn syrups. And in some ways, this is actually a step beyond refining. Now we're creating a sort of man-made, unnatural syrup that has a higher ratio of fructose to glucose. And on that topic, let's get into glucose versus fructose. So glucose and fructose are the two main simple sugars in our diet. So when we talk about glucose, it's important to understand that this is very tightly regulated. The example or the analogy I like to use is kind of like going to an airport. Every step is tightly controlled. And because it's so tightly regulated, the process of turning glucose to fat, de-novo-lipogenesis, is actually insignificant in humans. Let me repeat that. Simple sugar glucose does not turn into fat. And we'll get into what that means for weight loss or weight gain. But for now, just need to understand that, okay, there is a difference between glucose and fructose here. Because when we looked at fructose, when it goes to the liver, will get converted to fat. When fructose goes to the muscles, as in we use it when we're working out for energy, it's actually more similar to glucose, but the enzymes, the proteins that are the machinery in the body, that's a little different when it comes to your liver. In simple terms, fructose, liver, fat, okay? And we'll get into that right now. So a major source of glucose in our diet is actually gonna be starchy foods. So when I say starchy foods, we're talking about some of the foods I previously mentioned. So the root vegetables, the potatoes, the yams, the sweet potatoes, as well as the squashes, the noodles, the rices, the steel-cut oats, and so on. So for those starchy foods, what starch is, it's basically a polymer of glucose, so a chain of glucose that's wrapped in fiber. And because it's wrapped in fiber, that's gonna slow that digestion down, leading us to feeling nice and full and satisfied. And because these starchy foods are lower in calorie density, it means we can eat a lot and center our diet around them without having concerns about gaining weight. If you want to learn more about this, I have more videos on my YouTube channel. The main one is titled Unlocking Clarity, and that's a full lecture where I talk about calorie density, I talk about how to lose weight, and getting into practical steps and what this lifestyle looks like. Okay, but what about those more refined carbohydrate-rich foods, those flour products? Well, if you take that flour and you have it with water, we're gonna have none to little concern regarding weight and health. Because, for example, if we take pasta, 1 pound of dry pasta becomes 2 pounds of food, becomes 2 pounds of pasta when we cook it. Because of that, its calorie density from being a flour product at 1,200 calories per pound goes down to 600 calories per pound, meaning that instead of a pound of bread, you can eat 2 pounds of pasta, right? And if I were to ask you which one's more filling, hopefully you would agree with me that the pasta is more filling because you're getting 2 pounds of food versus 1 pound of food. So to summarize, when we have flour and water, we're gonna have little to no concern. For flour products without that water piece, so the breads, the rotis, the chapati, the naan, the tortillas, we're gonna have a little bit of concern just because they are a little higher on the calorie density side of things. Yes, the glucose is not being converted to fat itself, but because they are more calorie rich, it's easy to get excess calories in, and when we get excess calories in, there's little reason for our body to actually go out of its own way to start burning some of the fat up, right? If you always have good carbohydrate energy and your body's like, we don't really need to burn that fat for energy right now, so it can slow weight loss down. I'll get into that in a moment. The other concern with flour products, and especially simple sugars, is that they can spike our blood sugar because they've been refined down and they don't have that fiber and water. That sugar is going to enter our bloodstream quicker, which means our body's actually going to overshoot the amount of insulin it releases. insulin puts too much sugar away, and now we're actually below baseline for blood sugars, meaning we're gonna have cravings, we're gonna feel hangry, and it's not gonna be super pleasant. And sometimes people do this all day, right? We have something super sweet, we crash, we get something sweet so we can get that spike again. And this isn't exactly a good, you could say, long-term strategy or everyday strategy, because it's much better to get some fiber and water in and have your blood sugars kind of going like a nice easy curve throughout the day so our energy levels stay nice and stable. Okay, and then on the other side, if we look at fruit, we're gonna have none to little worries. And I'll say little worries because technically you can overeat that fruit, which might slow that weight loss side down if you were looking to lose weight. When we start processing that fruit into a juice, we're gonna get even less satiety because we just pulled all the fiber out of it. So we'll get a little bit of concern here. Other than that, a cup of juice here and there is probably not going to make or break anything. Then where we run to major concern territory is that high fructose corn syrup. So also when it comes to glucose and fructose, it's important to understand that fructose is 1.5 times sweeter than glucose. This is why a potato, even if you let it sit in your mouth and you break those sugars up, it's not that sweet. But if you have a piece of fruit, it's quite sweet. And this is why we have high fructose corn syrup, which is, again, completely man-made. High fructose corn syrup basically has a higher ratio of fructose to glucose that you're not going to find in nature. Because of this, we're more likely to overeat those foods. This is an ingredient that you will see sometimes in juices, but usually in sodas, which is why drinking soda is associated with obesity. And it's also an ingredient that sometimes you'll find in jams, you'll find in sauces, so it's one to look out for. In Canada, it is labeled glucose fructose instead of high fructose corn syrup, so just be mindful of that. And again, this one is metabolized differently than glucose, and because there's a higher ratio to it, you can expect it to go to the liver and be metabolized to fat. Okay, since we're talking about fruit, let's summarize this first. Excess will slow down weight loss. High fructose corn syrup will contribute to fatty liver and weight gain. On the flip side, when we look at glucose, if it's more refined, it will slow down weight loss, but for most people, actually, you can still expect to see some weight loss. However, you will likely see a plateau just because you're getting a lot of extra calories in still, and your body, again, doesn't need that reason to burn fat. Now we're just gonna walk through this very, very quickly. Okay, so on one side, remember, we have unrefined, straight from the produce section, straight from the garden. As we start to refine things, calories start getting concentrated. Yes, of course, they taste better, which is why we do the refining. But this also means that there's going to be a different effect on satiety and weight loss and weight gain. Importantly, there is a difference between glucose and fructose. Fructose is going to be converted to fat in the liver. If we're very active, eating a lot of fruit, drinking juice, likely not a huge concern. However, just note that when it comes to the sodas and to watch out for high fructose corn syrup in jams and other sauces that you might be buying. When it comes to glucose, what we want is we want to always have some fiber or we want some water, ideally both. So if you take some sweet potatoes and you bake them, well, that's all good, even though you got rid of some of the water because you still have a lot of fiber there. However, if you get rid of both, then we end up into a minor concern territory just because it's going to be more calorie rich, right? And because calorie density and weight is in balance with one another, it does mean that sometimes over time, for some people, based on their genetics, their activity levels, underlying hormones, and a variety of different other factors, that this can contribute to weight gain. So remember, if you're looking to lose weight, stick to those unrefined starchy foods. Fruits, all good, none too little worries, but you don't want to overdo it, and you definitely don't want to process things down to juices and high fructose corn syrups because that's, again, we're going to run into not feeling full and satisfied, maybe eating more of those foods, and potentially leading to weight gain. Okay, that is me summarizing carbohydrates. A lot of misconceptions surrounding these. The last thing I will say is, even when it comes to these unrefined carbohydrate-rich foods, the reason I say carbohydrate-rich foods versus just saying carbs is because these foods technically do have some fat and protein to them. I recently put a video out on protein. I'll have one coming out on fat soon. Definitely check out that protein video because I cleared the air like I cleared the air regarding carbohydrates. This is Andy with Baines Nutrition. I think I need to talk slower in these videos. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section any thoughts you have regarding carbohydrates. And I hope you stick around and check out this channel. I have tons of more videos coming out soon. Thanks for watching. Again, Andy with Baines Nutrition.